we are going to at least get the pre-show on. I always do this pre-show just to make sure that the tech is working, honestly, as well as so when some of you come and you think, is he going to go live? You can see that I'm already live, 15 minutes until, and we are going. So welcome in. Welcome in, everybody. We've got Kathy hanging out with me talking about our trip to the Faroe Islands. That's going to be amazing. We've both been there already. I've been there many times, but Kathy is going for a second time because we had the opportunity to go in the summer where we can see the Meechness puffins. And so I'm listening to myself right there. Okay, cool. Looks like my audio is solid and we're good. We're going to in about a few minutes, we're going to play a video of Alan Wallace talking about his setup for a move, shoot, move star tracker. And so if you're thinking about doing that for your panoramas this month, this is going to be a good time to watch before the show. Laurenciu, hey, man. Hey, man, I was actually looking for some of your pictures. I found your Instagram, Laurenciu, and I was going to feature one of your Milky Way panoramas, but I couldn't find it. But it's okay. We are going... Hey, Cheryl. I didn't say hi to Cheryl, too. I missed that completely. Hey, Cheryl. And we are I want to feature images from everyone next week. And so... that is potentially moving to a following week, depending on when I can get my guests to talk about deep sky astrophotography. So whether my guests can make it next week or the following week, we're going to be doing the opposite of whatever they can make as a feature the watchers, the viewers, the followers of Milky Way Wednesday, and feature their Milky Way shots. So... let's see how things go. We'll talk about that during the live stream. But Laurenciu, I couldn't find your picture today, but you could hook me up with yours, and I'll feature it on that day when I do it. So here we go. We are about to get started. I'm just setting up the last few things. So you're going to hang out with me here for a moment, and then I will get going. Oh, you know what? 8 minutes plus the 4. That means I definitely need to start almost now. So I think I'll start it just a little early to give some break between the other 4-minute one, and I'll play the video of Alan Wallace talking about how he sets up his move, shoot, move. You may have seen this already, but this is a shortened clip of just it that I've shared over on the Milky Way Photographers Guild. It's not visible anywhere else except there, except now. You can watch it right here. Now and go. So show us that tripod, that small, tiny tripod that you're talking about.
Some people compensate with big tripods, but
I do.
So yeah, I mean, imagine this is a full-size tripod, and I would normally have a ball head or a two-way head. A two-way head basically allows you to pan, and it also allows you to tilt. And I've been using one of those a lot recently because, well, actually, I'm going to talk about that in a YouTube video, so I won't get into it. But okay, let's say for demonstration purposes, this is my tripod, and I've got my two-way head on there. I don't want to waste time removing that tripod head and putting on an equatorial wedge or some other kind of mount to align my star tracker. So actually, let me just show.
Yeah, go ahead and grab it. I know that myself, I go into my gear and I put on the EQ wedge like you're holding right there, and then it is extra effort to go back and forth. So I'm curious about what you're doing here.
Yeah, so this is a God. It's got many names. Everyone seems to call them different things, but it's called an equatorial wedge, which is basically it allows you to get accurate polar alignment for a star tracker, because you can pan and tilt in very small increments and make sure that your star tracker is perfectly aligned with the North Celestial Pole. But the thing is, when you're doing wide angle Milky Way photography, sort of wide angle astrophotography, landscape astrophotography, you don't need this level of precision in your polar alignment. It doesn't need to be that accurate. So you can actually do polar alignment with a ball head or a two-way head, and that's what I'll prefer to do because it's so much quicker and easier. And then I keep my move, shoot, move tracker, everything I need to get tracking in this little case here, which slots into my bag.
Now and go. So show us that tripod, that small, tiny tripod that you're talking about.
Some people compensate with big tripods, but
I do. So I messed that whole thing up. I was changing a shape of my window over here, and of course by swapping back it swapped the whole transition. So this is before the whole show even starts, so you can ignore the numbers that are there right now. We're starting much sooner than that, but in fact I could just go ahead and do this here shortly. In fact, I might as well do that right now. Yeah, 10 minutes from now we're starting. That's roughly when we're starting. So I was sharing this video with Alan Wallace. I'm going to go back to it. You're going to have to restart it now. But yeah, Nevada Andy, he is definitely that skinny in real life. I'm going to maybe lose my weight to be close to that, but I doubt it. I'm never going to be Welsh skinny probably, but I will at least stop being Italian chubby. Well, actually, Italians aren't chubby. Me eating Italian food is chubby. Well, let's get back to Alan Wallace. Now and go. So show us that tripod, that small, tiny tripod that you're talking about.
Some people compensate with big tripods, but
I do.
So yeah, I mean, imagine this is a full-size tripod, and I would normally have a ball head or a two-way head. A two-way head basically allows you to pan, and it also allows you to tilt. And I've been using one of those a lot recently because, well, actually, I'm going to talk about that in a YouTube video, so I won't get into it. But
Okay.
let's say for demonstration purposes, this is my tripod, and I've got my two-way head on there. I don't want to waste time removing that tripod head and putting on an equatorial wedge or some other kind of mount to align my star tracker. So actually, let me just show.
Yeah, go ahead and grab it. I know that myself, I go into my gear and I put on the EQ wedge like you're holding right there, and then it is extra effort to go back and forth. So I'm curious about what you're doing here.
Yeah, so this is a God, it's got many names. Everyone seems to call them different things, but it's called an equatorial wedge, which is basically, it allows you to get accurate polar alignment for a star tracker, because you can pan and tilt in very small increments and make sure that your star tracker is perfectly aligned with the North Celestial Pole. But the thing is, when you're doing wide angle Milky Way photography, sort of wide angle astrophotography, landscape astrophotography, you don't need this level of precision in your polar alignment. It doesn't need to be that accurate. So you can actually do polar alignment with a ball head or a two-way head, and that's what I'll prefer to do because it's so much quicker and easier. And then I keep my move tracker, everything I need to get tracking in this little case here, which slots into my bag so nicely.
Oh yeah.
It's the case that comes with the move as well, which is great. And so neatly packed like a Tetris master is a very small ball head. Again, I just much prefer to have lightweight, small equipment that does the job. So I've got a very small ball head. Some people like to put a big ass ball head on top of the thing, but I really like just this little ball head. It's a Benro IH0, I think. It's a very lightweight, small ball head. Got my MSM tracker, the move tracker, and then a mount with the laser. So first things first, I've got an Arca Swiss plate on the move tracker. You can either put it on the bottom here, or you can put it on the bottom. It can make a difference depending on what your latitude is, but I won't go into that now. But I've got an Arca Swiss ready, so I can just straight away just put the tracker on my tripod.
Okay.
And then I've got that tiny little ball head, which I can just screw on the top of the tracker. Happy days.
Right.
I'll rotate the two-way head so that my tracker is pointing north towards the North Celestial Pole because I'm in the Northern Hemisphere. And then the next thing is you've got to get the angle of the tracker correct so that this axis of rotation is going to point at the North Celestial Pole, which is the point of the night sky that doesn't move. Everything turns circles around that point. So we want to make sure that our axis of rotation is pointing at that point, and then it'll turn our camera in sync with the stars moving in the night sky. And what's great about two-way heads is that they have degree markings, so you can see how much you're tilting your device. And the reason this is really useful is that the North Celestial Pole, the point in the night sky that we're trying to aim at, the height of that above the horizon is equal to your latitude on planet Earth. So I'm in the Brecon Beacons in Wales, which is 51 degrees north. Polaris and the North Celestial Pole is going to be 51 degrees above the horizon. So the easy way to think about that, if that's kind of confusing to you, is that if you are on the North Pole, you're standing on top of Earth and Earth is spinning. So when you look up, Polaris and the North Celestial Pole is going to be 90 degrees above the horizon. And you're on top of Earth and you're spinning and everything's spinning around, and the point of sky that's directly above you is where Polaris is going to be the North Star. And the further south you head down the Earth, the further closer Polaris is going to get to the horizon. And if you're at the equator, well, you wouldn't really be able to see the North Celestial Pole because it would be right at the horizon. Kind of just about see both the North and South Celestial Poles. But anyway, knowing that the North Celestial Pole is at an angle above the horizon equal to your latitude, you just dial in your latitude here. So I'm 51 degrees north at the moment, and I'll dial in 51 degrees on my tilt. I'm facing north, I've got 51 degrees tilt on. That's pretty much a decent rough polar alignment.
Wow, nice.
And usually for me, that's probably going to be good enough if I'm doing wide angle Milky Way stuff. Just to double check, I got the laser mount. So there's a little laser. You can see that. Green laser with a mount that goes onto the Move Shoot Move tracker. And that laser is now going to make a big beam in the sky that's perfectly aligned with the axis of rotation of the device. So I could double check that my laser is pointing at Polaris on the North Celestial Pole, just to make sure that my polar alignment is pretty good. And again, when you're doing wide angle stuff, 14 millimeter, 24 millimeter, 35 millimeter, maybe even a 50 millimeter, you don't need super accurate polar alignment. Just aim it north, get the tilt angle correct, and you should be able to do 2 or 3 or 4 minute exposures with a wide angle lens. And that's pretty much it. I'm good to go. I can stick my camera on this little ball head on top. Another thing I really love about this ball head is that it's just got a single knob, which once you unlock, you can kind of move the camera in any direction. And I love the simplicity of that. When you're working in the dark and you might not want to turn your head torch on, it's nice that there's just a singular knob and you can feel that, you can unlock it. Some ball heads have like friction knobs and panning knobs, and they can have lots of different dials and knobs. And like when you're working in the dark, it can get quite confusing. So having the simplicity of just a singular knob that unlocks the ball head entirely, it is really awesome. So yeah, that's my setup pretty much. And then I could just take all that off if I want and pack it back up in my bag. But I like that I don't have to take off the ball head that I'm already using on my tripod. Just stick my setup on top. It's very lightweight. It's very portable, quick and easy. Great for Milky Way stuff. And you can get 5% off with code Alan at the checkout.
Oh, yeah, please do. So if they're going to Move, Shoot, Move and trying to buy any of this gear, use code ALYN, Alan. And you can get 5%. Awesome. So thank you for going and running through that. That, I'm sure, is gold. Click on that button. Looks like it's back on showing me. Hey, I'm writing some names on here. I decided I wanted to put their name over their picture, so I was just doing that while I'm getting ready. We're about to go live. We're going to take liberties and give some people more time to get in here. It's 3 minutes until we go live, but this clock right there says 1. Let's go ahead. Hey, Fake Phil from North Carolina. Bowden, yes, tomorrow. Let's do this. Okay, so right here, let's go into our final videos before we go live. Boom. Let's start with the focus. No, let's start with the shutter. You decided what lens to use. You decided how much shutter you could handle. But now, guess what? ISO gets decided for you. It's by your histogram. So you just need to add a little ISO until you get the proper histogram. This is what your histogram should look like. What you are going to want to make sure is that you have a separation between the black and the midtones of the sky. You don't want them crunched together. So if you have this peak because it's so black in your foreground like I typically do, and you see it there next to the rest of the hump, you're going to want to make sure that they get some separation. So you see the peak, you pull up your ISO until there's separation here, but then how far else do you go? Do you bring that histogram all the way to here? Do you bring the histogram to here? Where do you go? This histogram is going to go and spike and then come back down towards the midpoint. This is the midpoint right there. That midpoint of the histogram is a perfect spot for you to bring that histogram to. Here's a shot, 8 seconds, 1600 ISO. Is it exposed well? No. Is this one good? It's still crunched to the left, but I'm starting to see separation between the black and the part of the sky. That's good, and that's at 3200 ISO. Here at 5000 ISO, is it enough? No, the separation is there, but the hump is definitely not hitting me right down in that center. 6400 ISO, the hump is getting very close to the center, but it's not there yet. ISO 8000, and then I see it touching the middle. Ooh, yes, that's when I say, man, that histogram is great. 8000 ISO is the perfect one for my lens at 8 seconds, ISO 8000. What will it be for your lens? What will it be for your shutter choice? Watch that histogram and get that shot well exposed. If you're back for day 3, this is my Carson Lumiloop. Right here above of this is a link, a quick text link, so you can go watch that focus video right now. But this is my #1 tip for getting great focus when I'm doing Milky Way photography. I take this because it has a plastic cup. It keeps it perfect distance from it. Flush right up against my LCD screen. And then I tweak it until I get the perfect focus. There's one more tip that I want to give you tonight, and it is one that if you have really good vision and you can see dots on the back of your LCD screen, this is going to be a quick tip to help you know, oh wow, okay, I can see the dots, I'm out of focus. Check out this clip of me in Escalante explaining it right there on scene. There's a way you can quickly see the difference on the back of your screen, even if you're not sure if you quite nailed the focus. Look at the difference. Can you notice the difference between them? This is just slightly out of focus, and yet I can tell immediately that I missed. And what is it that's giving it away? It's the brighter magnitude stars. Are there too many dots? If you start to see the stars as more than just a sea of specks of sand, but you start to see the brightest magnitude stars standing out, that's when you know you're out of focus. As I go more out of focus, watch how the brighter magnitude stars start to pop off the screen. And then here's even greater out of focus. It's so obvious when you look at it this way. If you're seeing a whole sea of stars, but there's standouts, if you have a lot of standouts, if you have just a few, I mean, look at this image. This one, you can see that there's definitely a few that stand out that are really bright. Antares, the planets, obvious ones, they're standing out. Back here, though, when I go over, there's a sea of them from corner to corner, middle, far left, far right. So if you have too many dots, that means the brightest magnitude stars are standing out. And when those brightest magnitude stars stand out, you know it's gone a little too far on the out of focus range. So try again. Awesome. Thank you for watching yet another 2-minute tip. I want to emphasize all of these tips. And here we go. It's Milky Way Wednesday. Hey everybody, welcome in. Looks like we got a big group tonight. We're hanging out talking about our Milky Way Panorama. And the way I'm going to teach it tonight is by featuring some really neat ones from the Milky Way Photographers Guild. And so when you look at these pictures, you're going to have some envy like I do. And you're going to have some questions. Oh, how could I do what they did there? We might get lucky with some of them actually here. I know that Ryan's here and Chris is here, but I know Blake can't make it. And then John Carter is in Australia, so he's just waking up in the morning. Actually, no, it's like 10 a.m. right now. Something like like 10 to 12 in the morning, or 12 in the morning. That's the wrong time to say. 10 a.m. to noon right there over in Australia. So welcome in. Glad to be here, Mary Beth. Awesome. So glad that you're here today. Haven't seen you in a few weeks. So everybody, before I get going into these videos, I just want to make a comment about what's coming ahead. I was telling some people who were here on the early pre-show, but we are going to have a presentation of your images. This is going to be one of the beginning challenges that I'm going to try out all throughout next year. It's possible we do them the rest of this year, but I'll have to see if I can keep up with it, because of what I'm about to tell you. So Bastera actually, okay, I gotta say this real quick. Bastera is actually from Ireland, and then Brendan is from New Zealand. They both had names that start with B, and they had similar icons, and I thought them mixed up in the beginning. But it's awesome we have someone from New Zealand right now. In fact, you're in New Zealand, you can tell me. John Carter. Yes, John Carter. Did I show this screen or something, or did I already mention John Carter? I probably did. Yeah, that's what I did. So Kirk has mentioned something. That's what squirrel. That's what it is. So I'm stoked to be talking about these images, but I want to talk about more of your images. For instance, I went looking for Laurentius and Faster's images to see if I can find their Facebook or find an Instagram to try and share one of yours, but I couldn't find it, and I realized, okay, let's just have everyone submit it. So I need you guys thinking, okay, what kind of panorama have I captured already this year or going to capture between now and a couple weeks? Then I want you to get out there and capture and share your images. Our best time is starting to leak away from us, so you need to go out right away, but we're going to have this challenge of sharing your pictures and sharing them for a very specific task. This time, we'll do panorama. And I would say share with me your best panorama. It's not going to be something that maybe happened this year or this month, but in the future, these other challenges will be go out right now. Here's the challenge at the beginning of the month. All this month you have, or at least during the best Milky Way nights, you have to capture this challenge, see if you can hit it. And then at the next month, I will be featuring my favorites from that challenge. So there's going to be a link given to where to share. I don't have it today, but I want to give you a heads up to get it ready so that you can share with me your images, and we can do an episode like that. Now, either next week we'll share the images or 2 weeks from now. I'm imagining it'll be 2 weeks, but it all depends on my guests that are going to come on talking deep sky astrophotography. Got to make sure it works out for their timing, and if it does, we'll have them next Wednesday. So talk about deep sky astrophotography. One of the main requests that came through when we did that challenge or that contest to win the Z bracket, everyone was saying deep sky. You're all into deep sky. So am I. I hear you. Okay. All right. Let's get that out of the way. We're ready to get started. How long did I take on that? Half an hour? No, okay, good. It's only 7:06. Sweet. So welcome in, everybody. It's 1 p.m. in New Zealand, so it's probably similar to what John Carter is experiencing over there in Australia. So, awesome. Well, Thursday afternoon. That's so funny. Milky Way Wednesday in New Zealand is Thursday afternoon in New Zealand. Of course, as it's right off of the International Daytime, but wow, that's cool. That's crazy. Kurt Kai's old joke. Hey y'all from Jeff. Hey, welcome in. Let's get started. Let's get some envy going for these Milky Way panoramas and talk about what worked and what didn't work. Well, we won't talk too much about what didn't work, but we'll talk about what went well and what you can learn from these images and get some inspiration for what you're going to do for your panorama before the panorama season is over. And Bob says, captured the ISS, several large bright meteors last night. Yeah, we didn't quite have the meteor shower that we had hoped with that Hercules, but no, which is good because I couldn't go out, but I'm sorry for those of you who did. All right, let's get started. Remember, everybody who wants to ask a question or make a comment that you want me to make sure I talk about during the live stream, hit me up right here in all caps, okay? All right, awesome. Let's get going. Okay, first picture comes to us from Mars, John Carter. He is out in Australia, as you can see. You might recognize already. I mean, this right here stands out pretty significantly. In fact, let me choose some. There with the colors I want. Large and small Magellanic Cloud, what we have never seen, I have never seen with my own eyes, and we never see here in the Northern Hemisphere. And so this is a panorama starting with the Southern Hemisphere. In fact, We have Brendan here tonight who can brag to us that he gets this kind of a scene. Oh, it's so gorgeous. It's so different. And this time of year, the capture when John captured, he weren't seeing much of the core. That core right there tends to be over a little bit more, and you can see it without having any of it obstructed by the horizon. So then what would happen is the core is up here, and then it sets down that way towards the fall, and you spend a lot of time with panorama opportunity low on the horizon in the later season. But you can see something very quickly why he made this work when it probably wasn't going to without a very wide angle. Nice, really clean horizon. In fact, let me just start talking with Envy about what he's doing right here. So this horizon, really clean, really straight for how very obvious his Milky Way has been stretched. You've got a very wide angle that's capturing up here, and as you zoom in, you can see how that part of the scene just gets a little bit stretched a tad. Some of the stars in the top of his frame, and yeah, stars for sure, they're just being stretched. And this top part of the panorama is taking the biggest distortion to come together because it is a very wide angle view for this panorama to work. It's not perfect season for it to be panorama, and he made it work. So I'm loving this picture from John Carter. So what can you learn from this example? Two things I want to feature from John Carter's shot. One, the very simple foreground subjects. You want to always have some interest that is going to go at different heights. I love how this up here at that height goes down to this height. Kind of the halfway point is the height of that tree. He didn't plant the trees. He didn't make sure they worked that way, but depending on how you stand next to some rocks, some foreground subjects, you can help this tree height go down and make this one the tallest one, and if at all possible, make the one next to it a little bit down too. And so that kind of foreground, breaking the plane, but having some organic differences in the height really, really makes it balanced. It's really nice and comfortable to the eyes. The other thing is he's got a very center-weighted feature from here all the way over to here. And so you got this spot right there where the gate or the wall ends of the cemetery, and he's left a really nice emptiness. Double tap, and there we go. Emptiness on the right and left to kind of balance the foreground. There's not much here, but he made it sing. He made it really nice. And it's kind of a spooky, it's a spooky cemetery to be in, all alone, capturing over to get that Milky Way. But it is looking terrific, and I love how he's got the Magellanic Cloud here hanging out between the trees and making sure that they're not blocked while he captures the rest of his very cool, very awesome arch and just the tracked shot. Let's learn a little bit about his shot, because the other thing I wanted to bring up was what he captured. Look at this. Look at all of the images that went into this. So let's go into what John said on the Guild. And how big is that? Maybe not big enough. Let's go here. And let's bring this tab over again so you can have it nice and large. So John says it's his first successful tracked Milky Way panorama. He used a Canon 6D Sigma Art 40mm lens with an f1.4 aperture, and then he shot it, well, let's see, for the Milky Way was ISO 800 at 50 seconds each image, but there's 70 images. 70 images for the sky. Wow. I mean, 40mm is not that tight. You don't necessarily have to go 70 images, but he went for a giga pano. And then for the foreground, he captured with 20 images, and then once the moon came up, you can see how they're getting bright on the horizon. It's probably the moon rising, and then this foreground got that treatment of what the moon was doing. So somewhere right around here, let's see, I got that back and forth, yeah. Somewhere right around this spot of the horizon, he had to blend a daytime shot, practically daytime shot with the moon out, and a sky capture with those exposures, and he blended it really seamlessly. It looks really solid, and it's not hard. It's really hard to see any flaws with his capture, with his spread. I mean, you can just notice between leaves and between the trees here at the horizon that it's just a little brighter sky from the daytime lit moon sky, where it's not the nighttime sky all the way down to the horizon. But it's very clean, and it's hard to check or hard to notice without checking like a pixel peeper. So how can we have added our panos? Okay, so Tim's asking me how to add your panos for submission. I'm going to give you that information in a separate video. I'll just post a separate video to the channel, and I'll email everyone as well. So the video will give you information on where to use it, how to use it, and how to click on it and submit a picture, while in the email I'll give you the link for where to go and where to submit. So as long as you're subscribed to my email list, or you go on to, say, photogadventures.com, you can go photogadventures.com, and you will be able to sign up for any one of the email lists. In fact, the best way would be to go to the workshops page if you're not already on it, and then go to click off of it. And as you're on, say, a workshop page and go to click off, it'll ask, oh, you know what? None of these pages are active anymore. That's right, because we sold out. Yep, none of these are active. Oh, this one might be. I need to stop making this one active. Oops. Well, we'll use that one for now. This is a workshop that Mary Beth and I did earlier in the year that's completely closed. But if you go to click off of this, you get this pop-up. And so this pop-up lets you put your name, your email address, and then you're going to get the list, and you'll have that email that'll tell you where to submit. That's one way to get on there. If you were wondering where that is and you can't find it and it's not working out for you and you just want to ask Aaron King, go ahead and hit me up with an email, aaron@photogadventures.com, and I'll hook you up with the link. So here it is, John's image, 70 images for that sky, 20 images for the foreground with that 40 millimeter, and he says, the foreground was ISO 3200 f2.8 at 60 seconds. So he was still really low, but wide open, and still at 60 seconds for that foreground. That's interestingly long with the moon up, but maybe that moon was not that bright after all. And this area out here, just interesting and completely solid capture with what is ultimately very simple. So when you're thinking about, Aaron, I can't find anything amazing like southern Utah, how do I get a good panorama? You will have open areas, rural areas like this in your hometown that you can pull out the Milky Way as best you can with whatever light pollution you have there. Just remember that if you have some light pollution blooms, see if you can line that bloom to kind of end up in this empty negative space underneath the Milky Way, and avoid having it cover up any of your core. If it covers up any of this, it really doesn't matter. Not a big loss, but it is a loss if you lose the core. All right, let's go to the next image. This one comes from Ryan Luna, and Ryan's with us tonight, and he captured this out of Joshua Tree, and I really love featuring this one because you got the air glow showing up that's way different than what John Carter was seeing. His sky's a completely different color. Sometimes you can't control that, and your air glow is going to change everything about your night sky. So looking at his image here, he did the same thing with very simple foreground, not a lot of structure. There's nothing really large taking up the space, covering up and bookending. He just has a very gorgeous looking Joshua tree, a very simple one too, that comes up in between this nice organic rock shape. And then the background has more of those Joshua trees, all that context of Joshua tree, as you can see people driving around, the light pollution that gets more serious towards this side, off to the right continually, as you saw in the previous Milky Way Wednesday. It's just a great balance between, okay, here's some context with the foreground, and here's what it is for my location, and then left lots of room for the sky. And so when you look at the previous image of having 70 sky images and 20 foreground images, you don't have to go that serious. This is a full panorama from Ryan Luna, and he got the sky in only 6 images and the foreground in just a simple 3. Because he has a dual exposure going on here, he didn't just capture all of this in one big frame. He captured the sky and then did a completely different setting for a foreground, and he probably went horizontal to get the foreground in just 3 images, where he was vertical on his sky and had to go 6 across. Let's check it out and see what he says about this image. Let's go to his image in the post. Bum, 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 scroll, scroll, scroll. Lots of fun. We'll be back to that image. Oh, look at that. Isn't that amazing? Hudson is just killing it with texture lately. I think I mentioned this a couple times. I just have to do it again. Look how beautiful that texture is. Oh, gosh. Are you really going to take that long to load? It must be that big of an image. Open image in a different spot. Oh, yeah. There we go. You could taste the salt on that. Oh, wow. That's such good focus. All right. Okay, that's not what we're here for. Hudson, you're distracting me with your awesome image. Let's continue on. Another one from Hudson. Okay, continue on. Ignore. Oh, here we go. Ryan Luna. All right, so he says, I spent this past Saturday night roaming Joshua Tree National Park to chase the night sky. It was a great night to be out, as it was a new moon. The image is a panorama of the foreground and sky. All the cars driving by during the foreground's 4-minute exposure really lit it up quite nicely. It's actually lighting up the foreground, too. Okay, right on. The sky is a 6-image panel, but the exposures were taken at 1:30 a.m. the same night in the Porcupine Wash area of the park, which is about 15 miles southeast of this foreground shot. So he captured the sky separately from this exact spot so he can get it clean. So this is going to be more of a composite than a blend, but it is true to the nature and true to the location. And then he says the foreground took him 3 horizontal exposures, as I predicted. Yes, 20 millimeter, ISO 800, f7.1. So hit that note right there. If you're going to do a dual exposure for your foreground and go longer, try a different setting, but I want to show you something here that's true in his image and Blake's image and possibly the others, where if you do a dual exposure, there's some things you should keep consistent and some places you should make a change. And in this case, the consistency is the ISO. He has the same ISO of ISO 800 for the sky and for the ground, or vice versa in that order, but they're both ISO 800. Since it was ISO 800 for the sky, he kept that despite changing the f-stop, same millimeter, and he went from the exposure of 3 minutes for the sky to actually doing 4 minutes. Wow, that's interesting. You only needed 4 minutes, so they really lit up that foreground well, Ryan. If you only needed 4 minutes, that's 1 extra minute. Typically, you're going to capture the sky for like 8 seconds, unless you're doing a tracker, and then you do for a longer exposure. But then when you go for your foreground, you're going to have to keep that ISO consistent so you get a similar color, temperature, color feel for it, but then extend that shutter quite a bit. And in his case, he didn't have to. Not much at all. He was at f3.2, then he went to f7.1, and all the difference was a single minute. So that turned out really, really well. Now at 9 p.m., it's before astro twilight, and so he most likely benefited from the twilight sky as well, keeping that nice and bright. So no wonder why it wasn't crazy long. So if you're curious about how to capture something as nice as, you can't even see it anymore, as nice as Ryan Luna's panorama, what you'll take on is the challenge of a dual exposure and a star tracker for the sky. And very simple and very gorgeous looking. So when you're looking for something to fill up our space here in the northern hemisphere, something like this that'll take up, okay, come on, there we go, take up room in this negative space under the core and be a little interesting across the horizon, because here's the horizon and he has something that is now going below it because it's so close to the camera and breaking that plane above it. And that's where the interest comes in, instead of just being all sameness kind of at this height all along the horizon. You need something that is going to break the plane and make it far more interesting than just a long distant horizon that is underneath the Milky Way. All right, we'll be back to Ryan Luna later. So Chris Woodruff captured this shot, and I didn't mention how many sky or foreground shots because he didn't, but he mentioned how this is his first time doing it with the 50 millimeter. And Chris, I believe you're with us tonight, so tell us any information that you want. Oh, yeah, Ryan says the ground horizontal is correct. Okay, awesome. So this shot from Chris is 50 millimeters. So that's tighter than the 40 millimeter that took 70 images to get the sky. He said he took about 1/3 more. I said I was going to come back to that image, so it was above me, right? Scrolling back in the guild. Glorious, glorious. Oh, so good. And oh, that's Chris's, but not this image. We're featuring this one because I want to show off not a full panorama. So this image, oh, he talks about it. I clicked on the wrong spot. Okay, here we go. So he says he captured this one at the Kern River in Kennedy Meadows. And it's an awesome cold night. He forgot to bring his jacket, but had a hoodie at least. So I've been there. Not dressed warm enough. Although lately I've been bringing my snow pants every time. So I don't know if I've been there as much. I just leave it in the car and wish I hadn't. This was my first attempt at shooting my pano at 50 millimeter. It takes about 1/3 more photos for the same coverage. And since it takes longer, the sky moved more. From this location, you're looking towards the desert, only about 20 miles away as the crow flies. So lots of air glow. I mean, look at the air glow. It's just gorgeous. It can be crazy some nights, especially when you're star tracking. And you're holding that shutter longer and longer, and it just brings out the color immensely. Good night nonetheless. Hope everyone's getting out there. Only a month and a half left for the summer Milky Way arch. So he's reminding us that summer Milky Way is going away when it comes to panoramas. And you want to get this arch, you got to go now, and it's June 1st. It's June 1st today. Oh my gosh, you got to go now. This is the last month, Northern Hemispheres. Okay, Brendan, you're lucky. You're really fortunate. You're going to see a panorama all the way through to November. But we are not. We are not going to have that opportunity. So this is a chance to go. Make sure you get out there. And if you have a scene that is just gorgeous, you've got the reflection down here of the stars. You've got this nice and awesome shape of a tree that is just taking prominent feature right in the near center of the image. Even though it does something that, Aaron King hardly ever does and cries about whenever he has to. Mary Beth has a beautiful image that has a tree blocking her Milky Way, but it's still good, even though it impedes on the glory that is this section of the Milky Way. The core, still nice and featured, and still looks amazing, reaching up with dust lanes up here to the Rho Ophiuchi complex. I love the Star Tracker color, how it brings it out. You got the yellow of Antares, you got the reds and the blues all popping up, and then that detailed dust lane. Oh, man, it is just gorgeous, Chris. So when you get air glow like this in your star tracking, you're going to really bring out detail. And since he had a 50 millimeter that made every frame almost like a deep sky frame of the sky, it really brought out the detail in a wonderful, wonderful way. Justin Miller, you got edited by YouTube, but I'll tell you that you said, "Oh man, we have Michigan people here," or you said "OS," but I can't say that. Keep it a family show. But yeah, we have Michigan people here. We definitely do. I mean, Mary Beth Kaczynski. We also had another one earlier. Who am I thinking of? I was thinking of someone else. Maybe I was talking to someone online. Okay. Anyway, that Chris Woodruff says his image was f2, ISO 2500, 75 seconds, and odd. 75 second odd each. Odd each. What does that mean? Seconds each. Right. LOL. I see that. Yeah, this is just a lot of images, and they turned out terrific at that low ISO of f2 of 2500 because he star tracked it, and 75 seconds each is plenty of time to really bring out that detail. If he had gone even longer, it might have been distracting with all of that detail. Tim says, I just got back from Utah and I can't wait to share the panel of the three sisters at Goblin Valley. Way coolio. Oh yeah, I can't wait to see that, Tim. You're going to share it during the live stream, I hope, and I can see it and talk about it and gush over it and see how jealous I am of it. So yeah, they're talking about Michigan, talking about some stuff. Looks like there's no more questions for me. Boom. Okay. Awesome shot, Chris. a great way of taking something that looks, with this bridge right here, it's not far off the beaten path, and yet you get something that is different and unique and really stands out. Love it. Okay, let's go into Blake's shot here. This is Blake Fair's panorama over Mono Lake. You can see that he has the sky at 120 seconds, even the foreground at 120 seconds. I mean, look at the glassiness of the Milky Way in that reflection, because that's just a nice, soft 120-second exposure. Wow, look at the flight path back there. Okay, so this turned out terrific, and like the other image, unlike, I thought he was the same. I thought Blake's was the same. He has the same shutter, but not the same ISO. So he captured the foreground at ISO 400, same amount of seconds, but he captured his sky at 1600 to get more detail and dust lanes and the darkness, and it's just really great with the great rift of the Milky Way right here. It looks awesome. It looks fantastic. And f2.8. So look at this image and think about what we've been showing off. You've got a brilliant arch, and now you got to do something in the foreground. A lot of foregrounds that are flat. I think Chris's was the most dynamic foreground so far, where he had an outline that was higher, continued on, and then went off to the middle. But the most interesting part of the foreground continued down organically, and then brought you from the corner of the left side of the frame down to the bottom of the middle frame, and it carries our eye throughout all of this image with the dynamic, organic shape of the foreground. And we've had a lot of other images that are a lot like Blake's, where it's very flat. So the best way to feature it and bring something of interest is having these different shape, different height, really cool tufas out there at Mono Lake that become a feature. Now this is not doing it justice at this size on this frame for Blake's image, but you can see how much detail and how solid his image is. And Mary Beth, I'll say this quote from Blake that I heard from him just a few hours ago, because I completely agree with him. He said that he learned a lot from the group, he's learned a lot from me, but he wishes one thing about his Milky Way photography. One thing was different. He wishes he was as talented as Mary Beth Kaczynski. And I said, boy, tell me about it, man. I hear you. I'll never be as good as Mary Beth Kaczynski, and I accept that fate. She is amazing. And if Blake's image looking this good is jealous of Mary Beth Kaczynski, you know that she's amazing. So, Blake, just an amazing shot. He's not with us tonight because he's out busy capturing the Milky Way, I guess. I don't know. I mean, it's like focused or something. And so he can't join us live, but he is out there capturing right now. And so we'll be able to see his panoramas and how they turn out in another video when we do that live stream when we share everyone's stuff. But I just love the balance. I mean, look at the wherewithal to kind of bring in this tufa off to the right to try and give a little bit of a starting point for that Milky Way to take off from. It's a really good bookend. And then when you're looking at this foreground of water, he could have cropped it off right here or something and stuck with just that water, but I love that he kept in this corner and this corner. I mean, as you're doing a panorama and going far right all the way to the far left, it is hard not to get enough of that foreground. And so where do you crop it? Where do you decide to cut it? When you're thinking about how to crop yours, pay attention to Blake's share of the space here. You've got a foreground subject that's taking up this third down here, and then the Milky Way is dancing through the third and middle of the frame right here. And so you're looking at balancing that way and then just continuing it off to the left. So watch that center point of the whole arch and your subject. And so in this case, Blake's is kind of right here. That is the key section of his composition. And then he just keeps that height going off to the right and going off to the left. He just keeps it at that height and then crops accordingly to keep it looking neat and not distracting. He got enough of this Milky Way reflection right there without taking away from, showing all of this context of the shoreline that he was standing on. And so when you're cropping out, think about the negative space and the positive space around your Milky Way and around your sky. For instance, he could have cropped off the sky right at the top. I mean, here's the top of the arch, right? That's plenty of headroom typically. But with the extra space above, he now has an image that is this shape. And it's more solid overall, considering keeping that last, few inches of the picture. If you had cropped it off, it'd be very, very long, not very cool to share on like an iPad or on a phone. And so consider where you're going to share it and how you're going to print it or what you're going to do. But that's an awesome picture from Blake. So I haven't read Blake's post on this, so let's go ahead and get over here. How am I doing on time? It is doing well. 7:33. Awesome. I'm going to have plenty of time to get dinner before they close tonight. That's awesome news for me. I passed Blake, but that wasn't Blake. That was Blake's comment. That's right. It was Blake's comment on another picture. Try not to drool. Try not to drool over Hudson's images. Yeah, Mary Beth, you are awesome. We are awesome for saying it may be. There's Cheryl Kerr's awesome picture of the Orion over her new house there. That's so beautiful. I miss Orion already, and I'm frustrated that I never got a good shot with the red cat before it left. But I'll be back here in August, and I'll capture it then. I'm a fool for not making more time. There he is. There's Blake's image. Okay, so checking out the background story. How far will you drive for one spot? I've had this shot in mind for a while, but the timing never worked out. The Milky Way only lines up like this early in the season. I also wanted some moonlight on the foreground, so last Wednesday it lined up. I left Oceanside, California at 3 p.m. and drove 8 hours with traffic, to Mono Lake. There was one car in the parking lot. Of course, it was fellow guild member Chris Woodruff. Yes. Tim's asking me, how can one join the guild? Imagine if you were a guest and you typed in Milky Way Photographers Guild. Just a short 4 words, and you are brought to this point. And then this is the guild. Now, this is a no ads, no Facebook features, nothing like that kind of group, and so it does have a membership cost to be in there. But $5 a month, I hope, is not too much for anyone. It hasn't been for everyone else. So when you come in here, you can click on this. And when you click on that, you can try it for free for 3 days, and if you're thinking, you know what, I won't post that much, but it's nice to see what's in here, then you can leave. No worries. You can leave whenever you want. But it is $5 a month for everything. I am trying to create one page on there where people who are coming in free can interact with those in the guild, but they won't see any of the Milky Way Roundtable videos or any of the other stuff that I share or the PDFs that I share that I need to share more of this year. But, the podcast, I need to take that out of here. Because, I did take that podcast out of here. I actually did something. Woohoo! Cool. So the podcast is no longer an element of it, but this is the guild, and you can join it anytime you want at MilkyWayPhotographersGuild.com. Very long. I do own MWPG.com, but I don't think it works. Right? MWPG.com? I don't own that. I own something else. Where am I taking everyone right now? Should I worry? Yeah, it's for sale for $28,000. So if we want to go in on some crowdfunding, we can own that shortened acronym for MilkyWayPhotographersGuild.com, and I don't need it, don't want it. It's okay. You can always set a bookmark up and make it easier for you. So, Tim, that's how you join. I hope you'll see you in there. You can share your picture there, and that's how I'll bring it into the live stream next week or in 2 weeks, depending on when my timing works with the Deep Sky guys. So, there was one car in the parking lot, and of course, it was fellow guildie Chris Woodruff. He was muttering something about the winter Milky Way or something. Chris has been known on the guild for talking about that winter Milky Way all the time. Shot the foreground with 30% moon, then he shot the sky after the moon set. That's a perfect thing. A perfect scenario where the moon's up, capture the foreground, let it set, and then get the sky. I love that. And then he drove 7 hours home. Was it worth it? Was it worth it? I think so. I love this spot. I do too. I know exactly where he was standing to capture that shot too. Sony A7R3. He used a Tamron 28-75. He had it out at 28 millimeters and then was using 120 seconds, ISO 400, 2.8, as I mentioned already before, with moon. And then, that's why he changed the ISO, because he had the moon out. Exactly. That makes sense. So I used some artistic license on the reflection created in Photoshop. Oh no, the truth. So he faked the photo. He used Photoshop to fake the reflection a little bit. I was loving how smooth that came out and had some detail, but now it makes sense. I'm sorry to reveal that secret, Blake, on the live stream, but this is this is a lie. The cake is a lie. The reflection of the Milky Way is a lie. There's some liberties being taken, but it's a gorgeous polishing element. Thank you for being honest about it, but it's a bummer that it couldn't work out. Obviously, these still had reflection color in there, so I expected maybe, possibly, but that might be a little too much detail. I'm curious what the original looked like and how much of it was there. Maybe just the color, the hues of it, but not necessarily any of that detail. But that's a great shot, Blake. Very awesome image. So, back to Ryan Luna. We're going to end tonight with a comparison of two panoramas. And this is from the exact same location, two completely different photographers. One is named Ryan Luna, and the other is named Alan Wallace. Alan Wallace captured this image in a rush after he dropped his camera. It went pink, 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 and fell down below that. And Ryan Luna possibly had plenty of time to capture his image, and you can see the differences. Tim Farmer says, LOL, a good lie, a great choice. I had an impossible time getting reflection there. Okay, so you tried as well. You definitely do need still water. Relaxed, flat water to make the reflection work. My absolute favorite panorama. Okay, my favorite panorama is with the footprint, the dinosaur footprint of the giant canyon in Canyonlands. My second favorite Milky Way panorama has a reflection with just 1-inch water, perfectly still, and it was the best experience of my life. So there's a question from Justin Miller, everybody. Check that out. He's a question about a lens. So looking at these rocks, you can see that Ryan's capture has a different color temperature for them, but it's the exact same composition, and there's elements that I really like. Now, I know that Alan and I were rushing this to get going to 3 different locations, and he also had a group come up on him, so he couldn't try this differently. So the position that he sat in first, he was just like, okay, that's the one I've got to use, and he captured it and got the Milky Way. But there's a lot that I really like about Ryan's position a little bit further down on the rock where you can then see. Let's see if I can pull this up easy enough. Once again, I'm going to do a last-minute thought. Okay, actually, not so bad. So you can see this image there of me talking to the camera. This is the scenery. You can see how realistically you've got very little room to work with to see this arch, but he was just a little further down this way to capture that. So you can see the Milky Way from that perspective. As you can see this hump right there. That hump, that shape, is really complementary to the arch that Ryan pulled off. I really, really adore the height of this arch and then the roundness of this first part of the hump. When you look at Alan Wallace's, it's a little bit compressed. We had a lot more foreground in it, and then a nice complementary shape above with a Milky Way that is kind of paralleling the shape underneath here. Kind of like a nice eye, an Egyptian hieroglyphic eyeball. And just a really cool but forced, as we had to rush out of there, low to the ground, clouds are working our way and ruining some of the shot image where Ryan Luna had just freedom to work with. But you can see the light pollution off these clouds and the light pollution from 1,029 Palms over there. And it's just a little bright in this area. And if you're not there by now, you won't like Joshua Tree at Arch Rock here. You'll want to go next year and get that shot if you want to copy Ryan Luna's shot. So it's a very good image. I love how much he's getting inside the arch, where we were losing a lot more over here. In fact, I was standing, I think right here is a tripod leg of my tripod that he cloned out a little bit. So I'm right here. So I got even worse shot. And I don't even think I've even looked at polishing or editing it at all, because it's not going to be that great. Alan's turned out fantastic. So you can see a comparison. When you're doing your panorama, what are some of the choices you will make? Will you be afraid of something like this that's coming in and encroaching your core? Don't be. Let it bookend your core. Let it make that interest continue on. And then will the shape of the subject underneath the core take up that negative space where the core isn't. Let's go back to John Carter's because his has the most room to show off that negative space. So let's get rid of all of that. You can see that this space all right here underneath is quite a bit of negative space that you can play with and fill with a weighty object. And as you look at all the options that have come through, like Ryan Luna's very nice rock and a very skinny tree, to a very giant tree, but nothing else, no big rock, but it's still fantastic with the foreground rock over here. And then you've got the distant Mono Lake Island that is featured right there, not using up much of the space by blah, blah, blah. For example, here we are not using up much of the space, as you probably could and should, but it still turns out well as he balances rock shape and color with this, and this. That helps add up a kind of a comprehensive amount of weight that them together makes it as strong. But when you look at something like this and you see that weight really heavy in the middle and nice and that Milky Way coming over it, it really stands out. Let's get Ryan's information from this one before we end today. I don't have Alan Wallace's perspective on his capture, and I'm going to get him on a podcast, which won't be a video podcast. It'll just be me talking to him over on the Photog Adventures podcast, as I haven't released one of the episodes this week yet, this year yet. I have one with Rob Ryan that he helped me tell some of my stories. Where is that one from Ryan? That's right, I had to go back a little bit. Hey, there's Ryan again. Boom, 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 boom. Going back to Ryan's shot image. Where is it? I think I've gone too far. I'm pretty sure I went too far. I think I saw a loading image, and that may have been the one that was his, and it was just loading. Yeah. No. Yep. No. Okay. There's Alan Wallace. Okay. Where is it? Oh, I swear I found it in here. Must have been even further down. Let's just look up Ryan Luna. Let's see all of his activity. So, his posts. Oh, that's the name. Bad news for everyone, especially Ryan Luna. Yeah. Let's look at Ryan Luna's profile. Let's see his activity, see all activity, and let's go to his posts, because then I can find him. He'll have his comments first. Well, also a post that was recent, but this will help me scroll through it faster, except he's a prolific sharer of opinion. Awesome. It's cool that he's commenting on other people's images. That's really nice of you, Ryan, because some people are quiet in there, quiet observers, and it's nice to have the participation and also the validation for those who shared their image and you came on and said, hey, that's awesome. So I must have needed to go much further. Here we go. So here's Ryan's experience at Joshua Tree. 2021 in June. So it's the same month. You can capture it like that right now because it gets up higher. It's the last chance to do it. He says he decided to try and make a pano of arch rock. This location gets too crowded in the summer and for Milky Way shots, so I opted to create a blue hour composite. Okay, so he had to wait for that. He had to get rid of the crowd at night and deal with that and complete the arch in the Milky Way from different locations. That's fine. I got to the arch just before sunset and found 4 or 5 other photogs already set up. They were very nice and let me squeeze in for 15 minutes so I can create my pano of the scene. Lots of people climbing all over the arch. Oh, that's annoying. So what I thought would be 10 minutes probably turned into 15 to 20. Trying to get a pano or even a clean Milky Way image without spraying light torches everywhere is almost impossible now due to the amount of people visiting it. Notice these periods that are happening here? Someone copied and pasted from Instagram. People visiting it. After I got my pano of the arch, I drove down to Porcupine Wash, about 10 miles south of the arch, to get his sky images. So that position of the arch, we can't speak to it based off of this image because you'll have a different experience when you're there right on location. How much of that core will be visible? As you saw in my picture here, you had to wait a little bit of time, which was at the time April 27th. I waited till 1:58 a.m. local time to get that Milky Way up and over that. But you can go a little bit later, or depending on this time of the year. Now in June, it's going to happen sooner in the night when it gets up this high, and it'll continue to just get higher. So if you can avoid a crowd or avoid them ruining your shot, you can be patient and wait for that Milky Way to rise higher above the arch. This is the final product. And spent about 4 hours down there getting various tracked exposures. Cool, awesome. This is the final product. I oriented the Milky Way in its natural position as it would appear at this location roughly at midnight. The light bloom on the right is Palm Springs, and the light bloom on the left is 29 Palms, and he used that setting with a 14 millimeter or a Nikon 20 millimeter for his sky, and then did f1.8 for, I think, both. Doesn't say his f.8, his f-stop for the ground, but awesome. Sweet, Ryan. This kind of honesty about compositing it together from different locations, but from the same location, I love that honesty. It's not like he dropped in a Milky Way. He just had to go and get away from the crowd and get the same Milky Way of that sky of that night and matched it in there. And I respect the effort of making it still pretty awesome, even though it's not pure. Pure. But it's still beautiful. So, do I have to do a trial or can I just join? Tim, you'll do a trial first. It'll be 3 days that are just on the trial, and then it will charge you the $5. So you have to put in your card information already on the guild, and then in 3 days it'll just charge you unless you cancel. I think that's how it works. So yeah, you do got to do the trial. Wabanaki says, anything wider than 24? Okay, you're talking about the lens question from Justin Miller. Okay, cool. We got all that covered. Looks like I am set, and at 7:49. Wow, hey, 5 minutes ago, Tim Farmer joined the Milky Way Photographers Guild. Sweet. All right, okay. Looks like we are set. Boom. Thank you, everyone, for joining me tonight. Any questions that you might have before I hang up here, you have about a minute to give them to me before I am out of here. So we're just going to hang out here on Ryan's image, and then I'll jump back here to an awesome image from Blake Fair. Oh, man, Mono Lake. Now I have this on my bucket list. I have to get this image, too. And then you've got an image from Chris Woodruff. Beautiful, like, completely amazing jeweled sky in what is an unknown location. You don't have to be at a famous location to make it great, and Chris shows it off right there. Then if you are going to go to a famous location and you can really get a nice balance between Milky Way arch and foreground, Joshua Tree is something for you. And I love how the Milky Way starts with a bunch of Joshua trees and then ends with a bunch of Joshua trees. I tried an area nearby here. It was something with a C campground, and I was out there. And I tried really hard to get a close Milky Way, a close Joshua tree on both sides. So I'd have a Joshua tree breaking the foreground and horizon up into the sky on my right, where the Milky Way panel began. Then I had my big rock feature, and then I go off to the left where you can see more Joshua trees that are breaking the horizon that were really close to me. So I had to find an area where I was standing in between two Joshua trees that wouldn't block my view of the rock right in front of me. And I think it worked out, but I still need to edit it and find out. So Tim says, yes, go to Mono Lake. And Ryan Luna says, thanks for the feedback. Feedback? Get an awesome image. I'm not even sure I gave you an even little bit of advice. I think everything looked great. I mean, when you compared Ryan's arch rock with Joshua Snow, with Alan Wallace's arch rock, it is, I think, Alan, forgive me, but I think it's better for featuring the arch, and I think Alan would have loved to capture this as well if he had more time. Just thanks to the shape of the arch from this perspective, it's stronger in Ryan's than I think in Alan's. But what I really love is this whole terrain right here. You don't get any of that story in Ryan's that you get in Alan's. So that is a trade-off. And, I mean, no feedback to give, Ryan. I love that image, and I love your rock color choice as you post-processed it. It turned out terrific. And then John Carter, as you're watching this in replay, man, love this image. And I know it might just be my bias towards seeing the large and small Magellanic Cloud, but it's nice to have some positive space where normally it's just a bunch of negative space, and it's just turned out really well for being what is essentially a nothing foreground, a simple foreground with just 3 trees in a cemetery and the wall. It's just, you didn't have to do much to make it work. Thank goodness for the cloud. That turned out really well. I used the nodal rail on Archrock. Ooh, interesting. So use a nodal rail out there. I have not even bothered, since it's always worked, to not worry about the parallaxing issues. But I'm curious how much better it turned out with a nodal rail versus what I would do with my single image one. I have to try that out. John says, thank you, Aaron. Dark and clear skies at night, my friend. Thank you so much for those wishes. We have good Milky Way right now, and then it'll go back into towards full moon, and then it'll get good again at the end of the month. June 21st, I'll be out on the Oregon workshop, and Kirk Kais will be joining me on the 25th, the 31st, something like that, Kirk. 27th? I think it's the 27th that I catch up with you again, man. And Alan Wallace. Let's see. Not too much stretching like Alan's. Yeah, not at all, which is probably what came down to is his was on the inside and stretching where yours was not, and kept that shape. That makes sense. I can't wait to get out west to West Quoddy Head Lighthouse in Lubec, Maine for the new moon in June for a track panel. All right, Justin, I can't wait to see how that turns out. That would be just spectacular. So looks like I'm not getting another question. It's 7:54. I don't have anything popping up, and so I will call it. Again, let me remind you that the next 2 weeks I will have Milky Way Wednesday normal, and it will be me live sharing your images or having a couple guests talk about deep sky astrophotography to fulfill the requests that I've received from you guys so far. But after that, there's going to be a break in Milky Way Wednesdays that are live. What's going to happen is I'm going to be away on a workshop for 2 weeks, and then I'm going to be away in the Faroe Islands on another set of workshops for all of July. And so what I'm going to do instead is have a bunch of pre-recorded videos that are going to go through the basics. Most of you don't need the basics, but I'm going to have those available for those who have come to my channel to learn so they can catch up on the basics. And all of those basics will coincide with the MilkyWayPhotographers.com article. Hear that, Kirk? I've been saying I'm going to do this for, 3 years now? And I'm going to do that as well as a podcast episode for a new podcast. And so there's going to be a lot of information combined there that you can go and reference the PDFs on the article on MilkyWayPhotographers.com, and you can also listen to the podcast episode to learn more. So that's what's coming, and that's what you will get for 6 to 7 weeks of missing me live. And so I apologize for that. For those of you who are masters at this and just hang out with me for fun, like Mary Beth Kaczynski, you've got a break. You got a break for 7 weeks where you just do things of your own, enjoy your summer, and then come back and join me in August. Most likely last week of July, but we'll see when I can get back live again. So awesome. Faroe Islands, jealous. Yeah, no. Hey, Preston. Reedsy says, Faroe Islands. He should be jealous. Kathy and I will both be out there with 6 other people who will be joining us at different times those weeks, and we'll be enjoying some no full darkness. There will be no full darkness. Astro Twilight will be the only darkness it ever gets, and then it'll go right back into sunrise, and we'll get a summer Faroe Islands experience with the Meechness Island Puffins, and that is going to be a blast. Aaron, real quick, how do you sign up for email notifications again? You just go over here to one of my workshops. In fact, I will link this right now in the chat. So if you go to this page, this is an old workshop page. I need to update the other workshops, but I've been really lazy on doing that because people keep signing up. I don't have to do all that extra website work, and so I kind of forget about it. But basically what happens is when you go to this page I just linked you to for the first time from workshops.photogadventures.com, you scroll down to Aurora and click on this one to join Mary Beth and I, which we don't have anymore. It's already happened. Once you try to leave this page, it says, hey, you're not interested in this workshop? Would you like to know more about other workshops? And then you get on my email list here and say, oh, how about my address? Well, always give that out on live stream. That's what I keep doing, so it's okay. I might die someday. If there's anyone who ever hates me for Milky Way photography, I doubt that'll ever happen. Thank goodness. The Milky Way photographer community are a bunch of awesome people. So yeah, come and join me there and get on the list, and you'll see emails. And you also get emails reminding you about the live stream on Wednesday, as well as other offers for workshop discounts and stuff like that. So yeah, Justin, sign up there if you haven't already. Yeah, that place is incredible. RNCU says he loves Faroe Islands too. Preston, it's good to hear from you, man. Good to see you. Tim Farmer says, sounds like some trips planned. Have fun. Yeah, workshop trips, but I get to do some on my own before everyone gets there. And then during the workshop, I don't bring my camera out out of principle, but it's going to be a blast driving them around and guiding them through the most beautiful, wonderful, tiny islands of Faroes. Just, I love that place. And Kathy, we get to see the tunnel that connects Torshavn with Runevoik, and it's gonna be so different now. Okay, all right, cool. I need to go get some lunch get some dinner before they close out, and I'm out of here. Thanks everyone for joining me once again on a Milky Way Wednesday. I'm Aaron King with Photog Adventures, and I'll be back more with some pre-recorded videos eventually. And if not by next Wednesday, I'll see you live on Milky Way Wednesday. Have a good one. See ya.